Hello everybody, welcome back to Future Fiber. This is your host Jenny, and this is a channel where I talk about all the crafty things I do. It's mostly knitting. And welcome back to our regularly scheduled podcast episode. We're episode number 23, I believe. The last time I filmed a podcast episode was in December. We're already like 2/3 into January now, and that's pretty crazy to me. Like, I don't understand how time is flying by so fast. Makes me a little scared, actually. Anyways, today I'm wearing my Stockholm sweater v-neck by Petiteknit. This is knit up with Plymouth Yarns. I don't remember what the yarn name is. I'll put it up here. I actually have the yarn right here, some of the yarn right here. I believe this is kind of like a blown chainette yarn, and I think most of the fiber content is actually alpaca. But I got this at a yarn store in Boston, near Boston. I've knit the Petiteknit Stockholm sweater, I think 3 times. One was for a gift, and then 2 of them I have with me. But this was like the first iteration of the Stockholm sweater, and I really like the pattern. I would just say though that I don't wear this as much as I probably should because I don't love this yarn. It's soft, but it feels kind of prickly against bare skin. So I don't love wearing this without anything underneath. But then I guess on the fit of the sweater, it's a little bit closer to the body than some of the other sweaters that I like to use for layering. So yeah, this doesn't get a ton of wear, but I like how it looks. I think another thing is just the yarn doesn't wear very well because it's so soft, it just felts together, and overall this is a problem that I have with some chainette yarns. I feel like they have a lot of volume, but then they also have a lot of air in the yarn itself. So if you fold it up and put it away and you don't constantly kind of air it out, the yarn gets kind of flat. And I feel like with this Plymouth yarn specifically, it doesn't kind of return to its natural state. I'm sure if I steamed it or something, it will kind of revive itself. But yeah, you can even kind of see it here. There's like a fold line on the sweater. There's another kind of similar weight chainette yarn that I've used from Knit Picks. Knit Picks Wonder Fluff has a very similar quality to this, but I feel like that one is a little bit better. I prefer the Wonder Fluff over this because the Wonder Fluff seems to fluff itself better. I have a couple of finished objects, but honestly, I feel like I did a ton of knitting, but then I just don't have anything to show for it. It's a little interesting that way this time around. But I will start with why I feel like I did a ton of knitting. The first finished object is a kitty hat. It's a cat hat. I'm wearing like hair clips, so I'm not gonna put this on all the way, but yeah, it's just one of those rectangle cat hats. It's the same one as the blue fuzzy cat hat that I made in the last podcast episode, but this time it's just with a black acrylic yarn. This one is terrible. I did a really terrible job because I knit a bunch of these on the central knitting machine, and this was like one of my first iterations. The difference between this and the last cat hat that I showed is that this hat is a little bit bigger. So instead of using the central knitting machine on the tube mode, I used this on the panel mode, and I just cast it on like 32 stitches, and then I knit a long snake, basically long rectangle, and then I folded it over, and then I using a crochet hook slip stitched the sides like so that it's like this, and then I didn't even weave in all the ends, but the bottom I flipped it in and then just slip stitched it, or I think I actually did, what is that called? I just whip stitched it using a darning needle into the inside of the hat like this, so that if you look at it from the outside, you don't see any purl side, because it's not a fuzzy hat, so it didn't have any texture there that could hide the purl side. You can see that it's got a ton of skipped stitches here. That was because I just didn't know how to work with this yarn in the beginning, and then I figured out how to tension the yarn better as I started working with it more. So the cat hat factory was really going for like 2 days. I posted a little bit of a story about this. I meant to vlog this, but it was so chaotic that it made no sense for me to film any sort of video. And also, like, this is so easy that I feel like you probably don't need any sort of like visual to make this. I made like 11 of these in 2 days. And that was because I was going on a ski trip with a bunch of friends, and I thought it would be cool if all of us had matching hats, kind of. So I was just like cranking out the hat factory for 2 days, and then I managed to finish all of it, and then we all had a hat for the trip. I tried to make all of them in black first, but then I got so sick of working with this yarn that I ended up using just other yarns that I had. So there was actually a white version, and then there was also this kind of blue, the same blue here, this blue version. And that was pretty interesting. I did a couple of different variations of hats as well. Not all of them were kitty hats because, I don't know, I thought some people might prefer a regular beanie looking one. So I made a couple that were just like, you know, the process of making a regular beanie, double folded beanie on the central knitting machine where you just knit long tube. But yeah, I made a lot of these cat hats. I could say that I am the central cat hat expert now. No, I'm not. I mean, you can also knit this by hand. I'm sure it'll definitely turn out a lot better if you just knit this by hand. You could knit in the round based on your head measurement, and then, you know, whatever yarn you have, and you could just tube Kitchener the top and you're done. The skipped stitches, I'm like, that's kind of ugly. I guess I could make another one or unravel this and do it again, but I don't really want to do that. So I might put like I might get little ribbons and then put little bows to kind of cover up the skipped stitches, and I think that might also look kind of cute. So I might do that. My next finished object is actually another hat, and then you might be like, where did this come from? But if you go all the way back to like episode 1 or 2 of my podcast episodes, you might remember this yarn. This is this green yellow yarn from Biscotte Yarns. This is one of the balls that I got from their advent calendar from 2022. Yeah, I had this yarn for a little bit, and I also had started this Oslo Hat. Oh, I didn't even say what it was. It's Oslo Hat by Petiteknit. But I've had this for quite a bit on my needles. Like, I basically cast this on in the beginning of the year and then didn't do anything with it for the rest of the year. But then I found this as I was kind of cleaning around my room, and something just struck me. Sometimes, you know, you feel the calling to resurrect a project from your work in progress pile. So I did that, and then I finished this. So yarns, Biscotte Yarns, I think Bis-Sock, something, I don't know the colorway. And then this actually has 3 different mohairs that I used in it. I started out with using Knitting for Olive mohair in the colorway Dusty Artichoke, because I had like this much left over from a different project. And then I ran out, so the other part of the brim I used Katya Concepts mohair in, it was like a electric kind of yellow colorway, and that was what I was using for the other side of the brim. And then I ran out of that mohair again, so I used this, which is Drops Kid Silk. 3 different things of mohair in here, and you can't even tell. I mean, you can kind of tell. It's kind of interesting looking at how the different mohairs have different lengths. Like, I don't know how much of that has to do with the way that I knit up the different parts or wash and block the different parts, but if you look at Knitting for Olive mohair here in the inside of the brim, if you look at this, the fibers of the mohair, I don't know if the camera is catching that, but the fibers of the mohair are more shorter, and then they're closer to the fabric itself. But then it's creating this like more even halo around the fabric. The Katya side is also similar, and I feel like the fibers are finer than the Drops Kid Silk side, which is like basically the rest of the hat. If you look at the rest of the hat, I feel like, I'm sure some of it has something to do with the colors of the mohair as well, like the yellow of the Drops Kid Silk is a lot brighter than the Katya and the Knitting for Olive, but the fibers itself are longer on the Drops Kid Silk, and there's more shedding. The coverage on the fabric is a little less uniform than the Katya and Knitting for Olive. I don't know how much of that has to do with the different price points, because obviously I don't actually know what the Katya Concepts mohair costs new, but I remember looking it up and I think it was like pretty expensive, or around the same price point as Knitting for Olive, maybe a little bit cheaper. And then Drops Kid Silk is obviously the most affordable option. So it's a little interesting looking at the different mohairs and how they present itself when knitted up in fabric form, especially since the base yarn is the same throughout the hat. So that's pretty interesting. Now, this colorway is not something that I would normally knit for myself, because I just don't look really good in greens and yellows. So this is not a hat that I would knit for myself, and I also knit this a little bit too big. I knit the largest size, which is adult to large, I believe, but I had my boyfriend in mind when I was actually knitting this up. Instead of my head measurements, I think I would normally knit the size before that, which is adult medium or something like that. So this is kind of big on me, but then it also turned out big on my boyfriend's head, so maybe measure your heads before you go into it. I just thought he has a big noggin, so I thought it would fit him, but it's a little too big. But I also knit a little bit looser, so all those things combined makes this not the perfect hat, but it does the job, you know. It also looks a little weird on him as well. I didn't take his head shape into consideration before I knit this, so yeah. I mean, but it's a utility hat, and I am not going to use this yarn for really anything else that I would want to wear, so it goes to my boyfriend. So this is his hat now, and I still have a little bit of this yarn left, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I gotta weigh this to see how much is on here exactly, but maybe I'll use this to fix up a sock that I have. I have a sock that I knit up with Chopelvol Zauerball. It was in the colorway Garden Party, and then that was like a Flegel heel sock that I knit up. But then I felted one of them. The upper top of that sock is knit using a non-machine washable sock yarn. It was Cascade 220, so yeah, I was wondering if I could just like cut the sock where it started felting and then re-knit it so that I could at least throw it in the wash and then wear it. So I might do that. I might do some sock surgery. Apparently the gift knits are never ending for me in these past couple of months and beyond. I have knit a couple of new things for myself as a treat. And before I get into them, let me talk about the one work in progress project from last episode, which is my Minto sweater. This is a pattern by Knitonomy, and I am knitting this up with Holst Garn Supersoft in the colorway Princess, which is this purple. And then I am holding it together with this mohair, 100% mohair yarn. This is Purl Soho Coorie. I don't know the colorway. It's discontinued, so I'm sorry. You can't get it anymore. And this is the progress I have. I am knitting the size lowercase b. So there's, I think I explained this in the previous episode, but there's 6 sizes for the Minto sweater, and then there's the lightweight sweater version, and then there's the heavier sweater version. I'm knitting the lighter weight version in the 2nd size, so that's the lowercase b, I believe. And I don't know, I'm like potentially regretting that decision. I might have, maybe I should have knit the smallest size, because I knew that this is meant to be a very oversized garment, but it's very oversized, you know? Like, the shoulder line is here, but then the sleeve is going down all the way out here. The sleeve line is pretty far down the arm, so I'm like, this is also not blocked yet, so I'm like kind of afraid that it's going to be massive once I finish it. But I've already done this much work, and this is mohair and I don't want to frog it, so I'm just going to forge on and see what happens. The current status of this Minto sweater is as follows. I've finished the back panel part, so now I have to pick up for the front panels and then join them into one, and then I have to knit it down until I have knit all the armhole depth, and then I can join in the round, and it'll be in the round body, just continuing forever until I get to the end of the sweater. So I still have a lot to do. But it's been really enjoyable working on this cable pattern. I have never knit this many cables before, so this is very interesting, and it's a very memorizable pattern, and the pattern itself is written very clearly, in my opinion. So it's been very enjoyable. I'm having a great time. The yarn, I've mentioned a couple times, I don't really love the combination. The Holst garn is actually fine. It's just the Purl Soho Coorie that's giving me a little bit of a headache, because it splits pretty easily, because it is 100% mohair that's spun into each other, and there's no silk core or anything to kind of help it give its shape. I am using wooden needles with it. I am a metal needle, dare I say, lover. I don't prefer wood needles necessarily. I like sharper needles, I think that's what it is. But for this yarn combination, I do think I need to use wood needles, because if I was using the chagu needles that I usually use, this would just split the yarn into a million pieces, and then I would have to reconnect the yarn every like 4 seconds. I am a little bit curious to see how the rest of the garment will work up though, because right now the shoulder on this back panel, I wonder if my row gauge is very much off, because this increase as you go creates this very steep slope for the back yoke, and I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem. I wonder if it's going to create this like very like, you know, trapezoidal shape when I actually finish up the garment, but there is no way to know until I actually finish. Yeah, I'm a little bit suspicious of that, but hopefully it works itself out and it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I'm trying to remember what other garment that I knit before that had like this like very steep shoulder, and I think it might have been one of my favorite things knitwear patterns. It was one of the turtleneck ones. I remember I didn't really love the fit on that one, but then something about the sleeve construction on that was kind of weird too, where it created this like very skinny arms but then very wide body. Yeah, but looking at the armhole depth for this guy, I feel like the sleeve isn't going to be that skinny, so we'll see. Let's just keep on the cable theme, because I actually started a sock. I know I have some socks that are still like in progress, I just needed a change. I think I have a love-hate relationship with socks where I definitely have second sock syndrome pretty bad. Like I have a vanilla sock on the needles that's been on the needles for like ages, and I just can't muster up the courage to finish the second sock. I just need to do it, but it's anyways. But I I cast it on a new sock, and this is the I'm Ecstatic socks by Coolstitches, Nicole. And I've actually test knit this sock before, and I have a pair that's made with like the original recommended yarns, which is just like a sock yarn held together with mohair, which creates this like sport slash DK kind of fabric. But this time around, I didn't want to use mohair because you know your girl, I talked about this in the accessories video, but I just keep felting my socks and I can't do it anymore with socks that I can't just throw in the wash. So I'm actually just holding a sock yarn, single stranded, and knitting the largest size of the sock, just working kind of off gauge. The sock yarn that I chose, this is a new acquisition actually, Patons Kroy socks. And it's the FX version, which I think means it has this like color variation. It almost looks like Spin Cycle because it has like different colors of the socks spun together. This is the color Cadet. Side note, I didn't know Patons was bought by Yarnspirations. Isn't Yarnspirations the yarn brand that's owned by Michaels? So I guess they just bought the Patons like brand name. I don't know if that's changed how these are manufactured at all, so if you have any knowledge into that, feel free to share in the comments. Somebody's recommended this yarn to me before in one of my comments. I always wanted to try this because I saw it in Michael's every time I went. And it's like one of the only wool option, mostly wool options that you can buy in a big box craft store, you know? So I was pretty interested to try it, and I am glad I did because I really like this. I'm really liking how this sock is turning out. The pattern I already know I like because I've worked with it before, but the sock yarn, I'm knitting this on 2.75 millimeter needles. And if you know me and my sock history, you know that I knit my socks in very small needle sizes. Like I usually knit my socks in 2 millimeter needles or 1.75, which is basically toothpicks. The recommended needle size for this yarn on here, I said it was 2.75, so I was like, all right, I'll go with that, and then just knit off gauge. And I think the sizing is going to turn out pretty good. It's looking really nice, and it's got a ton of stretch in it. And I also did German twisted cast on. I don't remember if the original pattern calls for that specifically or if they call for just long tail cast on, but I did German twisted cast on for here, so it's got maximum stretch. And I think the color looks really cute too, so it's going to be a pair of really cozy socks to wear. I bought winter boots that are like the padded kind, so I've been liking wearing those with like higher socks and then maybe like leggings or tights. So yeah, this will come in handy. I think another modification that I would make from the pattern is that I want to repeat this cable section in the cuff probably like 2 more times than the original pattern calls for, because I want more length in the cuff of the sock. So yeah, we'll just work on that. And I started this last night and this is how much I have, which is, if you know me and my sock, once again, my sock whatever, this is pretty fast for me. I don't know what's with this pattern. I think it's because of the cable sections. I have this visual marker of like, oh, I'll just get to the next cable section, so I just keep working on it, versus like a vanilla sock where you're like, okay, how much did I knit? And then you look and it's like you knit 3 rows. So yeah. And then I also still don't know how to count rows in between cable sections. So I've been putting in stitch markers to mark how many rows are in between the stitch markers, I guess. So if you have any tips on that too, please share, because how am I supposed to count? And then we have a last work in progress. I soft launched this guy, or hard launched, I don't even know, on Instagram by making a little post about it. This is the Lonely Leftovers vest by Wool and Beyond. Got some fuzz on it. And this pattern has been on my to knit list for a really, really long time. Like ever since I saw it, I think last year, it was almost like a year ago that I've seen it. And yeah, I'm glad to finally be knitting it. I didn't purchase the pattern until now because I'm trying to be better about my pattern purchasing and not purchase yarns, or well, yarns and patterns until I have everything for it, basically. And I just didn't know what I wanted to knit this particular pattern with, so I haven't purchased it until now, but I finally did, and I'm glad I did because I really like how the pattern is written up, and I'm really liking how this is turning out. So let's talk about yarns. This is being knit with some leftovers, Lonely Leftover yarns. And the main of it is the Drops Alpaca Boucle in the colorway Off-White. And I had this left over from knitting a Christmas gift for a friend when I knit the zipper sweater. And I had like 4 balls of this, which was like a pretty significant amount. And I wanted to use it up I wanted to use up most of it, if not all of it, in a project. So I was like, okay, well, I don't think I have enough for a sweater, so what if I knit a vest? I also wanted to hold it with something else because I didn't enjoy the process of knitting that Alpaca Boucle alone, so I decided to hold it with this another long-term stash resident. This guy is a vintage, like 100% acrylic yarn. The brand is TLC Essentials. I showed it in a podcast episode a long time ago, but it has a cat on the label, which is very cute. And it's just this creamish, off-white-ish color, which is like actually a perfect color match for each other, which is pretty funny. And that's a big ball of yarn, so I was hoping it would be enough, but I'm not convinced that it's enough. I don't know what to do. That's discontinued, so I can't get it anymore, so I might have to just go to the craft store and see if I can color match something similar. Ooh. Or I have some of this drops, like white drops yarn that I could also use, but then I'm concerned about it being too, like, it's not the same color, you know? So we'll see. We'll worry about it when we get there, but this is what I'm working with right now. The key feature of this Lonely Leftovers vest is that it has these color stripes, or color points for the majority of the construction of the sweater, where you have like it around your armholes and then around the neck, and then just all around as a finishing element. And then you also have it in the back because you have this directional change of stitches where you knit this panel and then you knit off of it. And before you knit off of it, you have this black, well, whatever color you want it to be, but I chose black stripe. And this yarn is is actually the same yarn that I used to knit this kitty hat because I have a lot of it left still. Yeah, just really working with what I got here for this vest, but it's turning out really well. I am at a point where I've joined the body basically, so I just need to knit until I get to the bottom, and then it has this rounded off bottom shape to it, which is going to be exciting to do, and then I just need to do all the finishing edges. I went back and forth a little bit about what do I want that contrasting color point to be, and I thought maybe I wanted it to be a similar tonal kind of thing where I use this this is also TLC yarn, but like this kind of like, what even is this color? Like brown, light brown, cream, no, khaki color. But I wanted it to look a little bit more chic, so I chose brown or black. The fabric that this is creating is a lot nicer than when I was holding the Boucle single stranded. Even like this is acrylic yarn, so if you had some sort of wool, I'm sure it'll be even nicer, but this makes a very bouncy, squishy fabric, so, and I'm sure it'll be a little bit more sturdy, perhaps, because of the acrylic content. I'm hoping it doesn't like felt into each other as much as I am worried about with just purely boucle yarn. So this, I will say though, because the needle size, or if it's a combination of the needle size and the length of the cord, I'm going to switch out the cord after this video actually, but I'm finding it kind of hard to knit with because I also didn't mention that this is also off gauge. The original pattern calls for, I think, 6mm. This is 6.5, so it's not supremely off gauge. Or maybe they asked for 5.5. I don't know. It's definitely off gauge though. So I believe I'm knitting size small, but I'm hoping it comes out more like a medium or a large is what I'm doing. I don't know. I didn't actually, gauge swatch or anything. You know me. So yeah, maybe it's because I'm used to knitting with slightly thinner yarns now that this is a little bit too bulky. Like I find that being a little bit hard on my hands and wrists, so I'm having to take kind of breaks in between, especially as the project gets heavier and larger. My little wrists, they're suffering, but I'm excited for the end result, so I'm going to power through it, I think. So that's the work in progress. I feel like I have room to cast on a couple more things now. Like there's some breathing room with my projects. And I have a couple of acquisitions actually. Now we're getting into like why the gift knits are not ending, by the way. In the past like 3 or so months, I've always had some sort of gift knit going. Well, I was mostly prepping for Christmas, but then I also found out that my friend was having a baby, and then also that I wanted to make matching hats for everybody on the ski trip, so there was just like a lot of gift knitting involved. But then on top of that, I found out that my coworker is also having a baby, and I also wanted to make something else for my friend because I made the little socks, but I was like, how cute would it be if the baby also had the baby bear bonnet from Knitting for Olive. I've actually made that pattern twice before. Everybody that I find out is having a baby gets a baby bear bonnet. Yeah, I bought some yarn to make more of the baby bear bonnets. I'm gonna make 2 more. I bought this, I went to Michael's, and because I don't have any baby yarn, and I didn't want to, the original pattern calls for holding a fingering weight yarn together with mohair, and I'm like, I don't want to gift mohair to a baby. I just feel like, I don't know if they're going to be allergic to it, and I also want them to be able to toss this in the wash, potentially if the baby vomits on it or something. So, and this is the Loops and Threads Snuggly Wuggly acrylic yarn. This is 100% acrylic, and it's in this cute lemon yellow color. And this is a DK weight yarn. It's 446 yards or 141 grams, 400 meters ish in this skein. So I think I can get 2 bonnets out of this, or that was a plan. I didn't actually look up the yarn usage, so I might run out, but you know what, this is what I'm planning to use for the baby bear bonnet. The pattern is also super fun to work with because it has some techniques that I'm not really used to, like something with short rows and stuff to make the bear ears. The end result is really nice, but the whole entire time that I'm knitting that pattern, I'm like, what am I doing? But then it just always works out in the end. So, but then also, like, if you're working with infants, maybe like you don't have to do the string. You could put in a button at the end instead if you're worried about like choking hazards or something. So, but I figured like the parents are going to always use it for a photo shoot and not necessarily for everyday wear. So I've done the I-cords. I haven't worked with this yarn yet, so I can't tell you anything about it, but it feels nice. It's got this like acrylic sheen to it, but like because it has this like low halo, I don't know, I think it looks nice. It's gonna look really cute as that bonnet, I think. It does feel very snuggly wuggly is what I'm trying to say. I picked up some more acrylic yarn because I wanted to knit some or crochet some amigurumis. I am going on a business trip. I'm going on a business trip next month, and it's the first time that our entire team at work is meeting, and then we have a running joke at work where it involves carrots. It's 5 or 4 of us on the team, so I thought it would be cute if we all had like matching carrot bag charms or something. So I wanted to make some carrots. This means I will have to crochet, and you all know how bad I am at crochet, but it's a means to an end, and I will make it happen. And I've looked up some crochet tutorials or patterns for a carrot, and they seem pretty easy, so I think I could do it. And I picked up the Loops and Threads Soft Classic in this horrible orange color. It's so bright. If you have this on you, you're not going to get run over by a car. And the color name is Safety Orange. It's giving traffic cone, but it'll be a very radioactive looking carrot. And so I bought 2 of these orange boys, and then I bought one of the very saturated green. This is the colorway Ivy. So this together is going to make 4 carrots. Yeah, I hope they like it. If they don't, I hope they don't tell me, because yeah. So that's the update currently on my projects. As you can see, my acquisitions are hopefully things that will get turned into projects pretty soon. So I'm trying to be, even though the no buy, low buy is over, I'm still trying to be mindful and pretty sparing about my yarn purchasing. And I'll make a separate video about my thoughts on a year of low buy, and I will kind of detail that in a separate video, but I thought it would be nice to kind of illustrate how I am purchasing yarns in the new year. So that's a current update on that. I got the big cast on energy right now because I've finished a lot of my gift knits and knits that I was doing for the winter, and I'm going to actually refrain on buying a sweater's quantity of any yarn until I use up more of my stash yarn, so we can talk about how that's gonna go as well. But yeah, I hope you're staying warm if you're in the areas that are being really hit hard by snow, cold, and all of that. If not, I mean, enjoy yourselves. You're living in a warmer climate. I will see you guys in the next episode, and goodbye.